Welcome back from that break. If you're just joining us, this is still the Idea Money Digest on Idea TV for an examination malpractice. Because of course, if you are stopped from moving from one school to another in your SS3 level, and you're not allowed to go and take your SS3 classes in another school, of course, in quotes, we call it miracle centers and all of that. It's actually called this examination malpractice and all of that. But like Ms. Chinatu said on the news segment, when we were on the news segment, the second side of this coin is, what if my mom decides to move from one state, or my parent decides to move from one state to another? Does that mean I have to repeat from SS2? Because of course, if they said from SS3 class, it includes first term of SS3. If I can't start from SS3, that means I would have to either start from SS2 or SS1. And we mentioned the list of course, things that we can actually use to curb this issue when it comes to the second side of the coin. But I want to hear what you have to say about it before we...
Well, in as much as it looks like a good move, because of what probably the Minister of Education is thinking, moving from one school to another. When you get to SS3 level and you need to take WAEC, you now move to another school. Maybe from the perspective that he's taking it, maybe it's to stop malpractice, the fact that people just go to another school, write exam, WAEC, and NECO and all of that, you come out with A's. How? So does it mean that you cannot make A's in your
own school,
previous school? So I see that aspect. But then, like you mentioned, like you rightly mentioned, what about relocation? For relocation reasons, your parents are relocating to another state and all of that. It might affect the student in question, right? But then I just think it is a good move, because really, Deborah, you be in class at university level, you see people that cannot spell. Nobody is perfect, but then there are certain words that, come on, someone in primary 4 can spell it actually, and then you don't know how to spell it because, of course, Miracle Center.
So one of the
some people cannot. You are in the university, you are an art student, you don't know how to define constitution. And these are some of the questions they ask in WAEC. So how did you pass? How did you make A in civic education if you cannot define constitution? If you cannot define government, you don't know the 4 arms of government or the 3 arms of government, you don't know all those things. How did you pass civic education? How did you get A in civic education? If you're an art student, you remember that civic education is one of those subjects that people get A. Like, if you don't get in civic education, your parents will even ask you, even civic education, but then you get into the higher institution, you don't know how to define government, you don't know the arms of government, you cannot define constitution. So how did you pass civic education? And so on. So you probably went to a miracle center, so where they will tell you the answer or leak the exam question before time.
Write it on the board for you.
Exactly. Or they just pass it. They will just promise people to do your best and then write what you know, what you can write, and then you at the end of the day you see yourself getting A's. So I think that is what the Minister of Education is trying to put to stop. Yes, but then there are also the downsides, which might be relocation. I don't know, many things. Probably because of fees. For instance, people in private school, maybe their WAEC fee might be very expensive, and then you want to move your child to a government or a federal school to take examination because theirs are affordable. The examination fee are affordable.
So when it comes to examination malpractice, we usually do not see situations like students moving from private schools to government schools, because of course we know how strict government schools comes with these examinations during examination period. And most of the more vast, or will I say most of the things we see happen is students moving from government schools to private schools, and I think that's like major thing that the government wants to actually curb. And like that is one of the things that they are saying would actually propagate examination malpractice, because of course you know you can't do that in a government starter, except you can't even do that.
You cannot be too sure.
But you can have your way, like you can have your way to an extent when it comes to private parastatals. Now,
I think it is even stricter in the private schools
than government,
because there are very few in the class. You have 30 people in the class, you have 40 people in the class, 50 people at most in most private schools. But in government schools you have 100 plus in a class. How? So how do you say not even in a hall, especially when it is in a hall. You now have people, 200, 300 people in a hall. So I think it's even strict in private school because all eyes are on you. And the fact that it is a private school does not mean there will not be external invigilators.
Okay.
There will definitely be external invigilators from WAEC, NECO, and all of that. So I think it is even more stricter in private school. People want to move their children once they get to SS3 from private to government school where there are plenty, where you will not be easily be caught. So that is what I think.
Statistically, I feel like government school. I've not seen. Anyway, let's not personalize it. This is not just education policy. It is a statement about standard of a country's education. It's a statement about a lot of things that goes around the educational system. And of course, one of the questions we want to ask is why SS3? Why that class? Why? I would that actually curb the issue, because if you bring out a policy like this, that means we can start moving from SS2 and we can start moving.
They want to start exposing a lot of things. It's but just hits me in any way is because of this exam malpractice and the rest. Because that is what they keep singing. If you check what the Minister of Education said, is to stop all of those malpractice, miracle, and all of that.
So how sure are we that SS3? From the class SS3 won't make or will not incite moving from SS2, leaving your school at the in SS2 class to another school that you know you want to take your examination, and your examination malpractice, to curb this issue of examination malpractice. How sure are you that if you put a stop on SS3 classes, the students will move from that school to another school in SS2? Would that really, should we pinpoint a particular class to it? Should we say SS3? Are there other ways we should look into all of this than just...
Okay, now let's, aside from exam malpractice, let's forget about exam malpractice now and focus on the students. It might even affect them in many ways, because the way I'm being taught in my school is not the same way you might be taught in the school that you're moving to. Yeah. So it might even affect you. Every school has their style of teaching, their textbooks. Most schools have their personal textbooks. So it might even affect you, the way you study, what you are used to, the way you read, the way your teachers, your new teachers, it might even affect you that way. So I think it is just the best for you to stay where you started from. If you start SS1 in this school, please finish there. Write your WAEC and other exams there, so that you don't get affected. Not just about examination malpractice now, so that you don't get affected. There are many ways people teach. There are many school syllables that schools follows, and then who knows if you might even make it better in that your former school than the one you're moving to. So yes, it's not just about exam malpractice. It might also affect the students moving from one school to another at SS3 level. So yes.
So all what we're trying to say is that, and what the educational minister is trying to say, that we are looking for ways to actually curb examination malpractice in the country, and one of which he has brought out is to end the movement of students from one school to another school during their SS3 classes. And it's a good one, it's a good move. But of course we want to hear what you think about what he is saying, and we want to hear what you think, if this movement from SS3 class can actually curb the issue of examination malpractice in our educational system, or if you think there are other better options we should be looking at.